Caitlin Clark, the name on the marquee, the face on the posters, the gravitational center of the schedule, drops a single message that detonates the room. She isn't coming back. Not in a week, not when the playoff push hits, not next season. She's out. The sound of it ripples like a siren. Ratings stagger. Timelines explode. Sponsors pull the emergency brake. And while league offices say the expected things and straighten their ties, Sophie Cunningham steps forward like she's finished biting her tongue. This time, there's no gloss, no script, no "we'll see." She talks straight. And what she says doesn't leave much space for denial. If you came here for a tidy press release, you're in the wrong place. This isn't PR therapy. It's the unvarnished version of a story most people were trying to whisper through gritted teeth. Sophie isn't swinging for shock value, she's doing triage on the truth. Because Clark didn't exit due to a vague case of fatigue or the mythical rookie wall. She left because the structures around her, the ones designed to support, protect, and amplify, didn't do any of that. On the floor, off the floor, in public and behind the curtain, the guardrails bent and then vanished. And Sophie finally said what the flashing neon signs have been spelling out for months. The league failed her. She doesn't couch it, either. She points directly to the pattern anyone with eyes could see. The hard contact. The perma-bruise drives. The hit-the-deck moments that got shrugged off as physical basketball. The nights where Clark took punishment, looked up expecting basic enforcement, and got the sound of sneakers retreating instead. It wasn't hidden. Fans saw it. Teammates saw it. Broadcasters filled air with awkward pauses. Coaches chewed on their tongues. And the game just kept going. Cunningham speaks from tenure. She's not an outsider lobbing grenades from beyond the walls. She's a veteran who's memorized the map, the hallways, the unwritten rules. She knows whose elbows get the whistle and whose don't. She knows how the politics braid through competition. So when she says the system didn't protect Clark, she's not dabbling in conspiracy. She's citing experience. And she makes a second point a lot of people pretend is impolite to say out loud. It wasn't only about humanity, it was about business, too. Because here's the reality. Clark wasn't merely good for the league. She was a rising economic engine. Ticket spikes. Merchandise that evaporated. Broadcast windows suddenly valuable. Buildings buzzing because 22 stitched onto a jersey turns a Tuesday into an event. Clark turned casual curiosity into appointment viewing. The league had lightning in a bottle. And then let the storm beat up the bottle. Play through it became a philosophy, not a stopgap. The message, intentional or not, read like this. We'll market you Monday, we'll measure you Wednesday, and on Friday you can absorb another hit and smile for the pregame graphic. Sophie calls the invisible factor most people dance around. Jealousy. Not the cartoon version. Real, messy, adult insecurity that sneaks under doors. The minute Clark's box score became a headline generator, the temperature changed. Fouls started to feel pointed. Pushing the limits became a sport within the sport. Some players treated the moment like a referendum on who deserves attention. And in that heat, the officiating never tightened, the leadership never drew a line. It all gathered into a slow drip message. Your spotlight is negotiable. Your safety is situational. But Sophie is careful to widen the lens. This isn't just about one athlete. It's about an ecosystem's relationship to excellence. Do you elevate it? Or do you sand it down until it's fair, even if fair means dull? A league can either ride momentum or resent it. There's not much middle. Sophie argues the W did the latter. Not just players. Leadership too. Not just locker rooms. The rooms with budgets and strategy decks. That's why her words sting. She's not only indicting rough play, she's indicting a mindset. And then there's the twist of the knife. Clark didn't retire or break down. She chose elsewhere. She left for a league that made the simplest promise. Your talent matters, and we'll treat it like that's true. The optics are brutal. The implications are worse. Because the message to the next wave, the high school phenoms, the NCAA headliners, the ones who grew up with Clark tape on loop, is clear. If the WNBA can't keep its biggest star safe and valued, will it keep anyone? That's why Sophie's voice lands with weight. She could have smiled, stuck to clichés, collected a few safe retweets, and waited this out. Instead, she stood on a moving floor and planted a flag. Fans heard what they've been typing in comment sections for months. Protect your stars. Respect your stars. Build your future around them, not despite them. This isn't about creating special rules. It's about basic stewardship of the talent that makes the league a league. Meanwhile, the scoreboard off the court is blinking. The crowd that came because Clark made the games feel like shared events is frustrated. The casuals, the ones expensive to acquire and easy to lose, are baffled. They tuned in for a phenomenon and found a system unwilling to meet the moment. That's not drama. That's a strategic failure. If you ignore Sophie now, she warns, you're not just risking one exit. You're paving a road for the next 3. What's really on the line is momentum. Growth is fragile. You do not get Clark-level stories as an annual subscription. They're rare. They're catalytic. And if you treat them like interchangeable parts, you leak the goodwill they generate. Sophie sees the drip. She hears the excuses. She stares past the spin to the reality most fans intuit. A league that preaches empowerment has to practice protection. Otherwise, the slogan is just decoration. And here's where the critique gets uncomfortable. This isn't only about referees. It's culture. The parts nobody puts on a poster. Competition that confuses grit with hostility. Leadership that thinks keeping it even means shrinking peaks until nobody feels overshadowed. A communications rhythm that buries urgent issues under "we value our players" statements while video clips tell a different story. The gap between message and lived experience widened, and Clark fell through. Sophie's point isn't "make it soft." It's "make it real." Let physicality thrive within rules, not through their selective disappearance. Let rivalries cook but keep malice out of the recipe. Make the whistles consistent enough that talent, not tolerance for harm, decides outcomes. Most importantly, tell the truth about what the league needs. Stars who are protected as human beings and invested in as macro assets. That's how you build a sustainable audience, not a news cycle sugar high. She also calls out the myth of balance. Balance isn't letting your centerpiece take unchecked hits so nobody feels privileged. Balance is an ecosystem where the best can be targeted within rules and defended by those rules, every single night, regardless of team or market. Balance is acknowledging that attention isn't a crime. It's a responsibility. To the player, to the opponent, to the product, to the fans who are buying tickets because they want to see brilliance amplified, not punished. And yes, she goes at leadership. Not with a flamethrower for its own sake, but with the kind of specificity that comes from years watching how decisions are actually made. Who sets tone with officiating crews? Who defines enforcement priorities? Who greenlights messaging that calls physicality identity, but forgets the word safety? Sophie doesn't imply a conspiracy. She outlines a failure of nerve. The league wanted the attention Clark brought, and flinched when real stewardship was required. Her warning stretches forward. Recruits are watching. Agents are calculating. International teams are circling. If the takeaway is, you'll be marketed but not guarded, plenty of elite prospects will put one foot on a plane and the other on an endorsement contract elsewhere. That's not a threat. It's a plausible next chapter if nothing changes. If the WNBA wants to keep rising, it has to prove that stardom is a covenant, not a liability. Why should fans listen to Sophie? Because she staked her reputation on the risky position, the one that risks minutes, airtime, and allyship. That choice signals sincerity. She didn't read the room, she read the truth. And the public responded because honesty creates gravity. The dads who started tuning in because their daughters worship Clark, the girls who mapped their jump shots to her release, the newbies who loved feeling part of something. They all recognize when a league protects its promise versus protecting its pride. There's a reason spin won't work here. The tape exists. Night after night. We've all seen it. You can't retroactively narrate what millions watched live. The only move left is ownership and reform. That starts with officiating standards and extends to culture signals, media posture, and internal accountability. If you want to grow, you have to grow up, quickly. Sophie's not trying to torch the house. She's pulling the fire alarm so there's a house left to fix. That distinction matters. She's not asking for exemptions. She's asking for consistency. She's not demanding hero worship. She's asking for principle. Protect the workers who power the product. Celebrate the ones expanding the audience. Align the brand with the lived reality on the court. That's not radical. That's how major leagues stay major. There's also the uncomfortable conversation about envy. Nobody wants to admit it, but success can be socially expensive. It can put strain on locker rooms unprepared for asymmetrical attention. That's precisely when leaders earn their keep. They name it, normalize it, and channel it into competitive energy that doesn't devolve into cheap shots. If you leave it unaddressed, you breed a petty economy where resentment feels like justice. Sophie is trying to bankrupt that economy. Think about the timeline. Clark arrives, the lights get hotter, the arenas get fuller, the world leans in. The infrastructure, officiating, messaging, internal norms, needed to rise with her. It didn't. The mismatch became the story. And when mismatches become the story, the product feels unsafe, unserious, and unworthy of the very audience it begged to win. That's why Sophie's words strike like a hammer. She's naming the mismatch so it can be closed. And then there's the global context. Players overseas talk. Agents compare. Leagues recruit. When an American star chooses Europe for protection and respect, that's not just a personal chapter. It's a market signal. Ignoring that signal is not neutral. It's negligence. The W can either treat it like a bad headline to outlast or as an alarm clock ringing at full volume. Sophie wants the latter. Fans, by the sound of it, do too. So what does fixing it look like? It looks like standards codified, enforced, and transparent. Like training officials with an eye toward protecting ball handlers who draw disproportionate contact without turning the game into a parade of whistles. Like communicating to teams that deliberate message fouls will be penalized in ways that actually deter them. Like celebrating rivalries and hard play while drawing bright, non-negotiable lines around safety. Like owning past misses in plain language and promising something better with receipts attached. It also looks like internal culture work, the kind that doesn't fit neatly into a post. Teach the league to metabolize stardom without self-sabotage. Build media habits that spotlight excellence without inviting dog piles. Equip communications to resist the reflex to both sides, player welfare. Encourage veterans and coaches to set tone in public, so younger players follow. Make it fashionable to honor the player who puts money in everyone's pocket, even as you battle them for 40 minutes. Sophie's final pitch is simple, even if it's hard. Don't confuse accountability with disloyalty. Real loyalty tells hard truths in time to matter. She's not against the WNBA. She's pleading for the version that wins long-term. She's betting that if enough people in and around the league decide they'd rather be clear than comfortable, this isn't the beginning of a slide. It's the beginning of a standard. The alternative is ugly and predictable. More stars test the waters elsewhere. More fans drift back to casual distance. More prospects build careers overseas by default. The league becomes a place that makes noise on social and fades when the schedule gets crowded. Nobody wants that. Not the players, not the people in the stands, not the ones trying to sell ad inventory, and certainly not those of us who love the game enough to demand better from its stewards. Clark's exit is a fork in the road, not a full stop. If the league hears Sophie, really hears her, there's still time to reverse the current. Put respect into policy, put protection into practice, and put the brand behind the behaviors that earn trust. Let the game be tough and beautiful without being reckless. Let the rivalries breathe without letting bitterness drive. Let the best be targeted within the lines and defended by them, every night, no matter the jersey. Sophie didn't have to say any of this. That's why it lands. She could have taken the safer route. She didn't. She chose the complicated path because she cares more about the long arc than the short comfort. Fans recognized it instantly. This is what advocacy looks like from someone inside the blast zone. It's not polished. It's not cute. It's necessary. And that brings us here, to a question the league can't market around. Will you protect your most valuable assets as if your future depends on it? Because it does? Will you take a hit to pride in order to protect a player from a hit to the head? Will you build a culture that treats stardom like a shared windfall rather than a threat to be managed? The answer will echo across locker rooms and living rooms for years. Sophie Cunningham didn't break the WNBA with a microphone. She held up a mirror. What the league does next decides whether that reflection becomes a rallying image or a cautionary one. Fix it. Own it. Reform it. Not with platitudes, but with policy. Not with slogans, but with standards. Because if you can't guard your brightest light, you dim the whole room. Fans, you've been saying it already. Protect your stars. Respect your stars. Build with them, not against them. If you want more of the truth unsweetened, and you want to watch this story turn from a meltdown into a turnaround, stick around. Speak up. Demand better. Because the truth just left the locker room and took a seat at center court. And whether the league applauds or looks away will tell you everything you need to know about what comes next.